It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. Brown goes inside. Oh, what a slam from Jaylen Brown. Powell, Pritchard banks in the three at the buzzer. Great in and out dribble. Oh, he set off the smoke detector.
What's up, everyone, and welcome in to your Celtic Source, home of your Western Conference champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder. What a dominant game we had tonight from the Thunder on the defensive end. We'll spend the first 10, 15 minutes or so talking about this game specifically, and then we'll do some overarching themes from the series as a whole, and then towards the end, we'll do some finals predictions and answer any questions or so we had in the chat. Just to start with, something that I want to get out of the way before we even get into this series. I think it's so lame that the Thunder are, basically zoning the tickets. They're not selling tickets to opposing fans that are, more than 100 miles or so away from the arena. I mean, that's just so lame that you don't want opposing fans in the stadium, that you're so insecure that you can't win unless it's just Thunder fans. I mean, that's crazy. And the show tonight, I mean, just there was not a single, even, at the beginning of the game, there was nothing, and it didn't help that the Wolves, didn't get any momentum. But we'll talk about the third quarter later, where the Wolves did start to build some sort of momentum, and there was still no cheering, nothing for the Wolves side. It's just so crazy. But let's start with just the defense in that first quarter. To set the stage for this game, right? I mean, you start with just 14 turnovers from the Wolves in the first quarter, in the first half, and that's more turnovers than they had entire field goals, points, shots made in that first half. The defense just incredible. I mean, after that, game 3 where we thought the Wolves had found some sort of, answer against the Thunder's defense, and then in game 4 where they just come up short, I thought the Wolves would put up a little bit better of a fight, but they were just, completely flustered. It felt like in complete shambles for most of the game, the entire game, really, until late in the third quarter, where it was too little, too late by then. Anthony Edwards, he's part of the problem, of course. Right, he was aggressive in the first quarter, which you have to be. But he's doubled on almost every single possession. Right, and so he's forced to, give the ball up. Right, he has no choice. He has to give the ball up when you're doubled on every possession. Right, and that's sort of the difference here between Shai and Ant. Obviously, Shai's much more developed, and he has a much better, sort of counter to each type of, defense a team can throw at them. Right, Shai is just unguardable from that mid-range shot. And Ant doesn't have that, one shot that he can go to when all else fails. But the bigger problem is, SGA, because he's only being guarded by, one player, he can get to his spots and score, whereas Ant has to give the ball up. He has to, get his teammates involved, and then he's putting all the, basically the power into their hands, right? All the blame goes into, his teammates if they can't make the shot to help him out. And there's nothing you can do unless, right? And no matter how good you are, you can't be going at double teams. Occasionally, yes, but you can't be doing it for every single possession. And so Ant made the right play. And over the summer, coming into next year, he's going to make improvements. He's going to get better at his decision making. But overall, I didn't think he had a bad series. Right? He was. It was not great in that game four where he didn't get really any shots to start the game, and he came out of the gate slow. That was definitely not the case in this game, right? And he still put up, what did he put up in the end? He put up almost uh so he had 19 points, right, on 7 of 18. So, not great efficiency. 1 of 7 from 3 really hurt him in this game. What I saw in this game was, the Wolves come out and they miss so many shots to start the game that they, feel bad for themselves. And they sort of, OKC gets in their heads and it just compiles and compiles and compiles upon itself. And before you know it, it's a 35, 40 point game going into halftime, and there's no chance to come back, right? Had they, I I thought it was terrible the way the coach Finch didn't call any timeouts in that first quarter to try and stop the bleeding. A very a poor coached game from the Timberwolves. Um, in this game specifically, I didn't think all the games were like that. There were definitely some good games, um, but it is a make miss league, and when you can't when you can't score a bucket and the other team scores on the other end, and that's compiled by not only the Thunder forcing turnovers, but the Wolves also making just unforced turnovers and throwing the ball out of bounds, stuff that you know they have to. You can't give the Thunder extra possessions when they're already going to force 10, 10 turnovers a game with their defense. You can't give them more by just throwing the ball out of bounds. Um, 50-50 ball rebounds, right? Rebounds, deflections, all going OKC's way as they've gone for most of this series, right? The Wolves, their bigs just struggle to rebound the ball against Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren, even Alex Caruso to some degree. For some reason, Rudy Gobert. I want to talk about Rudy Gobert for a second. I don't know what's going on with him because he used to be such a great defender. You know, his paint presence and then his ability just to come out and stay in front of guys. Right, you're never gonna guard a quick and dynamic 6'2" guard as a center, but you could at least make it difficult. Stay in front of him. Um, Rudy Gobert cannot do any of that anymore, right? And you know he was just tortured by Chet Holmgren on the boards, right? And so if you're not gonna play defense in um, the initial defense, you're not gonna get a rebound. Stop OKC from getting extra possessions or give your team an extra possession. Plus, you're not going to provide any offense besides the occasional rebound that you get to keep a possession alive. Then what use is there having him on the court? And I like that they didn't go to him much in this game. That was not the reason they lost this game. He didn't play that much. How many minutes did he play? Right, he starts this game, plays 19 minutes. You know, Julius Randle plays 31. Naz Reid plays 24. Right, so they play a little bit less of him. He was definitely not the reason in this game that they lost, but I do think it was an overall theme through from the series that sorry that he can't he wasn't able to be a factor on either side of the ball. Um, you know, I I just before we move on to some of the other sort of points from this series, I thought the Wolves or the officiating in this game just really favored OKC. Right, it's it's been a problem all year. Like I was rooting for the Wolves in this series just because you know I just hate the way Shea plays and the calls that he gets and the flopping and whatever. I just hate. It's just like unfun way to play, right? He takes an ugly shot, the mid range shot. I like threes. I like driving to the basket, dunks. The athleticism, and you don't get much of that from Shea, which it works for him, but it's not a great viewing experience, I would say, which is why I was rooting for the Wolves in this series. Um, but this the officiating did not by no means decided this series, but you can't have the physicality of OKC on one end and then have them get these ticky tack calls on their trips and get free throws at the line, right? Their trips down the floor on transition and even in their half court offense, just the ticky tack fouls that they were getting. I watched maybe 5 or 6 possessions alone where I saw Alex Carew just slap the arm of Anthony Edwards or Naz Reid, and the ball gets deflected, and they get or the Wolves or the Thunder go the other way, right, for an easy transition basket, and you just didn't see any of those calls going the Wolves' way, right? Like just you know every slap just went uncalled from OKC. It felt like, um, but I think the bigger issue was you know the way that Jaden McDaniels guarded SGA in this series. Right, he's the Wolves' best defender, but he couldn't guard the length or the size of Luka Doncic last year in the Western Conference Finals. Right, he struggled with the size. He struggled with just Luka getting him on his hip. Even with his long arms, he wasn't able to you know help them, and they lose the series 4-1. And then in this series, right, he can't guard the speed of SGA in this series, and they lose 4-1. So you can't guard the size, you can't guard the speed. What what can you guard? Like, I'm wondering if he could be a trade option for the Wolves this summer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. More trade options, because I do think there's going to be major changes coming this offseason for the Wolves, especially with the new owners. Um, but he was a problem in the series, right? Ant getting doubled every possession, and on the or on the opposite end, right? Shea getting every shot that he wanted, partly due to just the single coverage, but mostly because of just the inability from Jaden McDaniels to even contest a shot. Let's talk about Julius Randle. Very up and down series for him. In up and down playoffs. It felt like this was going to be finally the year that he breaks out of this sort of playoff slump that he's had for the last couple of years, where a great regular season player, and then he just doesn't rise in the biggest moments. And he was great in the Warrior series. He was great in the Lakers series, although there's a lot of Anthony Edwards brilliance in that series as well. He was great in Game 3 of this series at home, where they won the game. But just provides just not enough overall, right? And he was the team leader in this game, right? 24 points, but he also has 4 turnovers, just 5 rebounds, you know, 8 of 14 overall, so pretty inefficient from him. So, you know, you have to, you know, when nothing, I felt like, I'll say this again. I felt like he sort of forced his way into the paint, I would say. He wasn't taking like sort of true or like easy shots. He was forcing his way and getting stripped, getting blocked by Chet Holmgren, other guys. Right, the Thunder had 8 blocks in this game. Right, 3 from Chet, 2 from Hartenstein, 1 from Williams. Um, Also 2 from Caden Wallace at the end of the game in garbage time. But I just believe that you know he forced it. He wasn't looking for his teammates. You wondered how the dynamic of Anthony Edwards, which is a much quicker guard and uses his speed and athleticism, versus Julius Randle. Can they sort of work together? And they couldn't at the start of the season, and got better, and they were rolling into the playoffs. But in this series, I think it really hurt them, the two different styles of play. Um, but Thunder side, this team's so young, so brilliant. They're 3 stars, right? Shea's obviously older. He's 26. But Chet and J Dub are 23, 22 respectively. Um, this team, because, with the new cap salary, the luxury taxes, right? Most teams have to, split it up after a year or two. But because their stars are so young and already under contract, this team could be at a finals run 4 or 5 years in a row. Right? They could win back to back. They could possibly, even win 3 in the next 5 years or something like that, just because of how brilliant this team is with the sort of the low cost of these players. Right? Every player playing above their contract this year for sure. Meanwhile for the Wolves, I think you look at trading Randle. Right? I know he just got traded here, but you look at trading Randle, you look at trading McDaniels, Gobert. I don't know what you do with him. I don't know what team's going to take a guy like Rudy Gobert anymore, who just, in a pretty offensively dominant league, you have to be able to score a basket when they need you to step up. And it just doesn't seem like Rudy Gobert, who is, has decreased defensively for sure, and on top of that, can't score a bucket to save his life. I just don't know what kind of market there is out there for a guy like that. Um, you know, I don't know what kind of players Ant's gonna take the next steps. I don't. I still have him as a top 5, top 10 player in this league for sure. Maybe top 7 player in this league. He's gonna take the next step. He's gonna be even better next year. They'll be definitely back in the playoffs. I don't know what you put around him at this moment, right? And obviously, I think when we look at how other teams make moves this summer, we'll have a better idea of what type of player could best work around Anthony Edwards. Um, I think you need, another shooter out there, possibly, a center that can shoot threes consistently. Just so when Ant gets doubled, you have another guy to, help him out and, make a shot, bail him out of a sort of a rough possession. Right? It's hard when you down the stretch of games, which is what really hurt them in Game 4. Right? The Wolves just didn't have enough players to, make a shot, because Anthony Edwards, he can't make shots because he's being doubled. Right? He's not going to have the ball in his hands to take that final shot. So you just need 4 guys around him that can make threes, which is what the Celtics have, which led them to a championship. Which most teams, right, even the Thunder, you have one guy, Isaiah Hartenstein, who can't shoot threes. Everyone else can make a three if they need to, and can knock them down enough that they have to be guarded. Right, you can't shade off of them. like you can with some players. But they're most likely going to be playing the Pacers in the finals. I think the Pacers will win tomorrow night. I will actually be live for the game itself. We will do a live play-by-play commentary and then a post-game show like this one afterwards as well. 2 separate videos, but we will start the stream for the game around, it's an earlier game at 8, right? So we'll start the game around 7:45 or so, and then we'll have the reaction right afterwards. And then throughout the weeks, the next couple of weeks, we will do previews, reactions to every game, probably more full live streams like this as well. Tomorrow, midday before the game, we'll be doing a video on Drew Holiday and a possible trade to the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs are in big need of a center. I won't spoil it too much, but this trade could work out perfectly. The Mavs are in need of a guard, and the Celtics could use a center with Porzingis and Cornette, Horford possibly leaving. So this could be a perfect trade. We'll do other rumors. Follow me on social media. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. You can check out the Celtics podcast on Spotify. Whenever we do one like the one for Drew Holiday tomorrow, that will be on Spotify after we record it. So make sure to check that out there. And until next time, I guess go Pacers. Obviously go Celtics, but I'm hoping that the Pacers, can find some way to make this a series. I think I have the Thunder winning in 5, probably again. I actually really think that the Pacers and Thunder play the exact same way. I think the Thunder are just a better version of the Pacers. I think they have this exact same players, or same type of players at least. Very similar. Score the bulk of their points off of turnovers and sort of shutting down or just getting out in transition, free points really. Until next time, go Celtics.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured.